Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you may be watching this. I'm Jamie Moeller, and this is the Grad Connection, where my goal is to try to help graduate students do more than just survive. I want to see you thrive. And so, last few weeks, I've been doing this, what I call the Teaching Assistant series. First one was like explaining what different assistantships were. Second one was kind of like different roles that I've seen graduate students fill, at least at Purdue. Then talking a little bit about success as a teacher, at least my philosophy of that. And so now I want to kind of move into a segments talking about kind of curriculum design, course design, things that, particularly if you're a graduate student, you're going to be responsible for the majority of a course where you have to maybe create a syllabus or at least portions thereof. I want to talk about kind of what makes up a syllabus, and then subsequent weeks I'll probably talk a little bit more about specific things. I had some ideas in mind, but we'll see where it goes. So this I have no idea if this is going to be a longer form. So if it is, I will apologize in advance. Um, and I will also give credit or acknowledge that Purdue actually has a template for syllabi that it provides. So the administration, or at least the provost office, provides that to faculty, and you can use that as a guide. And I used that as kind of a guide or an outline as I was writing stuff down, so to make sure I wouldn't forget anything. I will put it in the show notes, a link to it, and it's probably not the only template out there. If you're at some other university, you're probably going to want to make sure that you check and see what the requirements are at your particular university. So first of all, the key thing I think to recognize about syllabus for course is that it is really the contract between you as the instructor and the student. And so, as much as you may want to kind of leave things open ended and go with the flow and that kind of thing, it really needs to be written almost like a contract would be written. And any changes, at least my philosophy has always been, any changes that I make to the syllabus once a course is up and running, it's never going to penalize the students. In other words, let's say I need to give students more time, or maybe I need to change the assignment, an assignment due date. It's always, at least the way I approach it, is always in favor of the students, never in a situation that would actually penalize the students. My experience, sometimes I think as faculty or graduate students, something will come up where maybe you have to travel for conference or whatever. And as we kind of get post-COVID, that'll probably be returned to somewhat normality there. But what you always want to do, in my opinion, is as much as you can, you want to put any travel for conferences, presentations, those kinds of things, plan ahead for that and program it right into your syllabus. I know I've never had any problem going to conferences and those kinds of things as far as like trouble from the standpoint of students complaining about me being gone or whatever, because I always program it into my course. Now that doesn't mean that there might not be surprise things that happen, and when that happens, you just kind of have to deal with it. But I wouldn't expect that to be more than one time a semester in any given course. So nevertheless, it is a contract with students, and you want it to be as such where the syllabus is not changing and fluctuating. Students need to be able to count on that as being, pretty solid. Second, the syllabus provides critical information about the course, and so I'm going to spend a lot of time in this segment right here. It's basically the critical information about the course. So I want to walk through kind of things I think need to be in it. So first would be kind of like the course, what I call dog tag information, right? It's the official information about a course. It's the course number, it's the title. It's at Purdue we use Banner, and so there's a number called a CRN associated with different sections of a course. So you put that on there so students don't get confused about which section they're in or whatever. You put the times in there, how many credits it's worth, prerequisites, all of that. It's basically that formal, official, kind of locked in information. You also typically will include the description of the course, and that should be the official description for the course, not some derivation. I've noticed over the years that sometimes people will put, instead of putting the official description of the course, they will put some modification thereof. Oh, well, it needs to be changed to this. I just haven't got around to it. Well, get around to it and fix the course if that's the problem. The description should be accurate relative to the course, right? And if you're teaching off description, if you're teaching off title, that is, you've modified it, you need to be really careful there because, again, that information as presented by the institution needs to be relatively solid and relatively consistent. Second thing, instructor information. So your name, your phone, your email, your office hours, your office location. Generally, at least my experience has been for each class lecture hour, you should have at least an hour of office hour, if not two. And you should. I'll say early in my academic career, I would actually be in my office with the door open, that kind of thing. People could drop by. As I got further into my career, I would require people to schedule time. The latter, I wouldn't do that. I mean, I would have some open office hours, particularly if you're a graduate student, where people can just drop by. And so, it doesn't mean you can't do other work while you're, waiting for people to drop by. But nevertheless, you should have office hours. So that's instructor info. Second, needed materials for the course, like what kinds of books and are they required? Software, hardware, other kinds of equipment if you're teaching a lab kind of course. Um, you also might want to talk about access to whatever the learning management system is. So right now at Purdue, we're using Brightspace. Whatever that learning management system is, you may want to talk about, what kind of access is the person going to need? Are they going to need to be online, even though it might be a face-to-face course, or are there going to be some synchronous events where they need to be online and available? Um, those kinds of things. Access via phone, access via computer, access via tablet or whatever. All of these things are kind of the needed materials kind of thing to be successful in the course. Next would be like learning outcomes and what I would call related information. So I'm probably going to do a video on learning outcomes, but generally speaking, they are action-oriented statements that are related to the skills, knowledge, or abilities that somebody's going to pick up in that particular course. I'll probably talk about how to draft them and write them, but that's one thing that's in this section. Usually also, sometimes you'll also provide kind of your philosophy or approach in the course. And then sometimes people also include a how to succeed kind of section along with the learning outcomes. And so all of this is kind of up to you as to have, at a minimum, you need to have the objectives. Next, the syllabus typically deals with assignments, and you could include exams in there. I usually like to think of those separately. So assignments, exams, and activities. You typically want to acknowledge, what kind of types, what's the type of activity it is, how does it contribute to the grade, what are the due dates? And I'll say due dates are one of the most critical things as you're laying out a course to think about. I mean, and it's hard to accommodate every situation and every circumstance, but you need to think about, kind of, particularly if you kind of know the ebb and flow of the semester. Usually most courses are backloaded or mid-loaded. So mid and backloaded. So like in the middle of it, Purdue operates on 16-week semesters, at least right now. And so usually the front part of the course is, light, and mid-course it gets heavier. Then at the end there's a big hump. Whatever the cycle is for that particular course or that particular school or the school that you're at, you kind of need to get a sense for that. But you want to design or plan due dates around as much as you can. And try to create juxtaposition there. You also, like if there are evening exams, if it's a large lecture, there are all kinds of other considerations depending on the size of the course. But nevertheless, you want due dates, and planning due dates are critical in my opinion. It's one of the most critical parts of designing a course, if you will. You'll also, as far as assignments and that kind of thing, you want to talk about, where the expectations, is it an individual versus teamwork kind of thing? Is it going to be like exams, or closed book, open book? All of these kinds of things are typically what you would talk about in an assignment section. You'll also need to probably think about late work versus makeup work. Now, a lot of people have a philosophy of if it's late, they won't even accept it beyond a particular deadline. And if that's your philosophy, that's fine. Another approach would be to assign a late penalty. So this is something that as I've taught graduate students, this is something that I've adopted. But basically, my policy is it's 10 percentage points per day that it's late. And so that's kind of the approach that I use. But whatever your approach is, you want to specify it in the syllabus. You can't have a draconian policy of no late work if it's not listed in the syllabus, right? Again, the syllabus is the contract. And like most contracts, it needs to be written for the worst case scenario, not the best case scenario. So I would encourage you to have some kind of something in there about that. Next major section is typically grading scale and kind of, what's your grading scale? Is there some kind of curve? I'm not a big believer in curves, but there's going to be some kind of curve on it? Usually in this section, you'll also talk about, and one of the things you have to be concerned with, particularly if you're managing a course where there are multiple people teaching or grading, is this idea of inter-rater reliability, making sure that everybody's grading consistently. There's always going to be some variance of that, but you want to try to get it aligned as much as possible. Now, as a graduate student, you may not have a lot of people that you're coordinating, but if you happen to be a faculty member watching this, that's one of the hard things to do, is to get everybody to grade relatively consistently, because some people are going to want to be really light and kind of, reluctant. Other people are going to grade really hard. And my philosophy, I guess, as far as grading is, I've always approached it with students that, I always want my grading to be logical and fair, objective as much as possible. And so I always presented to students, if you got a grade, if I've misgraded or I graded something incorrectly, or even, by your perspective unfair, let's have a conversation about it. Because if I can't justify it, it's not in my mind, I won't leave it where it's at. Now, that's my philosophy. Now, other people are like, heck with that. If they won't even explain themselves. You have to decide how you want to approach that. That just doesn't, that secondary approach there that I just said doesn't really align with my style, if you will. Next part of the syllabus would be an attendance policy, and given with COVID and all that kind of stuff, it's been just crazy. I think you need to outline kind of what your expectation is. There's a lot of research that shows that showing up for class, being involved in the class, being present for class makes a difference in your grade. But as a faculty member, as a graduate student, you're going to have to, or a staff member, whatever, you're going to have to kind of define the attendance policy and what your expectations are as far as absences and expectations. And I've heard a wide range of things. So some people are like, okay, you have 3 absences in a 16-week semester, burn them however you want to, but after that you fail the course or something like that. Some people are like, don't miss at all or you fail. Some people, it just varies, right? Usually, because I teach a lot of graduate students, so my approach with graduate students is, as long as you talk to me up front, we'll try to figure out some kind of something for you to do to make up, any kind of attendance points that are related. The key thing is laying out your expectations in writing in the syllabus. And then typically, the first day of class, you talk through a syllabus and it gives you the opportunity to expand upon that. But the key is to have it in there. The next major thing would be like course schedule, like the schedule of stuff. I oftentimes will separate my syllabus and my schedule, because the schedule I look at as like a quick cheat sheet, and I don't want to have to funnel through the syllabus like 3 pages deep into a syllabus to find schedule. Also, a practical consideration is my syllabus. The syllabus I usually create in Word, and the schedule I usually create in Excel. And so that's kind of another reason why I separate them. It's up to you as to how you want to do this. But the course schedule should, some things that I think are major. First of all, what day is it? And I usually try to provide the week number, like week 1 through 16. Actually 17, and I won't explain, because of breaks and stuff, it ends up actually being 17 physical calendar weeks, but it's actually 16 weeks for it. I'm not going to explain it, but anyway, day. I usually provide the week number. I usually provide the date, both of those things. Second, I typically will provide like a task or topic column. So what's the focus or content for that week? A readings column. And I will say, one of the things you want to make sure if you have readings in a course is making sure that people understand, your students understand, whether your expectations is that they read it before they come or sometime after. Then I usually have an assignments column. And in that assignments column, I oftentimes will talk about, I'll actually put the thing that they're working on, and then when it's due, it'll actually say due, like that assignment due. That's just my approach. But course schedule is, I think, one of the critical pieces, aside from, I said, planning, due dates and stuff. So the schedule part is important. And then the last part of the syllabus in my mind is kind of what I would call policy elements or reminders, right, of things. And this is kind of a variable, I'll say, as I've looked at syllabi at Purdue, this varies from faculty to faculty and what they include, but the provost office template actually provides recommendations, and so I wrote some of these down. Like, how do you deal with academic integrity issues? So that would be a section. A non-discrimination statement, a statement on accessibility and a common needed. How do you get needed accommodations should you need that? A topic that's very poignant today or very relevant today is the concept of, or a section on mental health and wellness. Particularly pointing students to resources for that. Basic needs in a security section, so like just basic needs like food insecurity and those kinds of things. Where can a student pursue or find resources to try to help them in that way? And then lastly would be just emergency preparedness and kind of what happens if a major emergency were to happen. So to me, those are the major sections of a syllabus. And one additional thing that I wrote down about syllabi is sometimes faculty will Sometimes people will, have a document or a page that the students actually sign and turn in to acknowledge that they, number one, have read the syllabus, and number two, they agree to it. I haven't, I think I might have done that in some courses early on in my career, early in teaching, but as I've taught graduate students, I haven't really done that so much. But nevertheless, that kind of covers what I would consider all the major sections. Then lastly, the last point I wanted to make about syllabi is taking the time in your course to present the syllabus, to walk through it, and to give the students the opportunity to ask questions and those kinds of things, even if they're repetitive questions, even if they're questions it's like, yeah, it's right here. You can point those things out, and it's a good thing. I think it's good practice, and good form, if you will. One of the other things I will say is, because graduate students oftentimes teach undergraduate students, particularly beginning undergraduate students, one of the keys that I would say in dealing with, beginning students is understand and this is probably true of all students, but particularly a freshman. But understand that the first days of the semester are extremely stressful. I oftentimes would say students are staring at multiple elephants that they need to eat. And it can be completely overwhelming for a lot of them, including graduate students, but mostly, but particularly undergraduates. Take the time to actually try to, allay some of that fear and just remind them that, yeah, you have multiple elephants. You got an elephant in each class that you're going to have to eat, but you basically take it a bite at a time, a day at a time, a week at a time. And as long as you kind of do that, you're able to overcome that hump and that hurdle. So this is the video that I wanted to talk a little bit about syllabi. Again, I'm continuing this teaching assistant series. Again, I hope you're finding these videos useful. I have seen the viewing numbers going up, so I'm going to continue this until, again, I don't have anything left to say, which I don't know that will happen, but we'll see. Anyway, I hope as we are approaching right now, for me, this is mid-August, 2021, we're getting ready. We're ramping up for the start of the semester, hopefully breaking out of COVID, even though we have this variant going on. And I think there's a lot of excitement and stuff for our people to kind of get back to normal. So if you're finding these videos useful, drop me a line. Give me, if you got questions, I'm more than willing to chat. And I would also encourage you to subscribe on YouTube. So join the private Facebook group on Facebook called The Grad Connection, or connect to me. So have a great day. Hope you find these useful. Bye-bye.